live in Europe as someone Jewish, specifically in Poland as someone Jewish, before World War II. And to be able to get a sense of that. How many of you all read the book Misha last year? Okay. So if you remember when Misha came to speak, the two of these folks were friends. So that gives you a time frame. So, ready, Lori?
Yes.
You're on.
Yeah? Okay. Now, as the rabbi so graciously said, that introduced my daughter, Laurie, my grandchildren is Michael and Brian, and my name is Mel Kagan. I was born and brought up in Poland, which was, that part was the Ukraine. And Poland was there until 1939, prior World War II. Then when it came the agreement between Hitler, Germany, and the Soviet Union that divided Poland. And that part of Poland where I was born fell into the Russian zone. And that's how I became a Russian citizen. Now, the life in that town of mine, which was a population of 25,000 people, and half of them were Jews, and most of the Jews were concentrated in one area, like a ghetto, so to speak. And the wealthier part of the Jewish population lived in different places, and the poorer part would live in the poorest places. As I was growing up, as far as my family was concerned, we were well-to-do. My father had a haberdashery store, and we had our own business, our own house, which was a big plus in Poland because most of the people were very, very poor. And a lot of them didn't have anything to eat. And the Jewish Kehillah, which is the organization, the Jewish organizations that always had in mind, they went around and collect money from well-to-do business people, and they distribute the money among the poor. You're talking about poor. I remember my father's store, people used to stay in line going in begging. That was on a Friday afternoon, and everybody got 1 grosh. 1 grosh is equivalent to 1 penny. But in Poland, 1 penny was a lot of money. And then, at the same day, people that collected money, the 1 penny per person, they used to go into Jewish houses with baskets, hand baskets, and collect bread. Everyone who came in, remember my mother cutting off a slice of bread because in order to give more than a slice, you had to bake, 50 loaves of bread. That many poor people were here. So I was, when I started going to school, the first thing I went to school was a Jewish school, 5 years old, and they teach you how to read and write Yiddish. We spoke Yiddish in the house. At that time, we didn't know any other language except Yiddish. And I remember the rabbi, sorry about that, whoever it is. The teacher had a big bench, and everybody was sitting one next to the other, and he was sitting, well, let's say over here, with a whip. And he had a pencil, and he pointed to the Hebrew letters, and you have to, whatever he said, you have to repeat. And if you don't repeat it right, you took that whip, go and he hit you. And when you came home and you were complaining to your mother or father that the teacher gave you a licking, so you get another licking from your parents. The parents said that evidently you deserve it, you see. That was the life out there. And if you go, for instance, you want to learn a trade, and you walk in with your parent, and you suggested, your father or father suggested that you want to learn a trade. So the first thing, the person who was about to hire you said, I probably hire you, but you have to remember one thing. Anything he doesn't do right, I'll whip him. Well, this was how people lived, because through generations, this is how it was. So anyway, I started going to Yiddish to learn how to read and write Jewish. At the same time, at age of 7, you go to public school. When you leave public school at 2 p.m., you go to Cheder, which is the Jewish school, to learn how to read and write. After a few years, at that Cheder, they teach you how to read and write Yiddish. And I will tell you that I'm 77 years old. 73 years ago, I went to Yiddish school to learn how to write in Yiddish. Till this day, I can sit down and write a letter in Yiddish, just like it was yesterday they taught me. So what I'm trying to say is, the most important thing is education. What you learn now when you're young, you'll remember the rest of your life. The town that I grew up was surrounded by rivers, and we used to go in the summertime, we used to go swimming, boating. Outside the city was wide open. You could see the green, the flowers, and you could see the cows and goats and anything. And in there was a river, a big river, and we used to go swimming there. Men were separate and women were separate in those days. However, in the middle 30s, in the late 30s already, the men and women were together with bathing suits. And after that point, the men were separate and women were separate, and women wore all these pajamas, and men didn't wear anything, and separate beaches. Summer was beautiful, the area was beautiful. In the winter months, we used to go skating, and we had some hills in my city. Laurie was the one that she and I were there 6 years ago, and I pointed out to her about that hill. We used to, on a sled, 4 or 5 guys sit down, and the incline was great, and there was maybe a half a mile way down below, there was the main highway. So there was always somebody standing there and watch out for horse and buggy, otherwise you'll fly by and get killed. That was fun. And the winters were terrible, absolutely terrible. This is not a winter here, this is not Florida. We used to wear flannel underwear, and when you went to sleep, we had dining room and a bedroom and another bedroom, and there was a Russian oven, and the 2 walls were on each side. You put the coal or wood in there. This wall is warm and this wall is warm, and the rest of the house didn't have anything. So I remember they used to take a big puff and put it against the wall before you go to sleep to warm it up, because it was impossible. You couldn't get undressed. That's how cold it was. I mean, we had double windows and all of that, and we took sand to put on the windowsills and put pieces of paper with glue the corners of the windows so the cold wouldn't come in. And it still was cold. It was terrible cold. But not knowing anything different, you know, cold is cold. Somehow you live. And when it comes to go to school, it is not like over here, where communications is terrific, radio right away, listen, cancel school, this and that. There wasn't such an animal as canceling school. I remember going to school where we went to snow up to my belly. Yeah, because people didn't have any radios, right? And even if you had a radio, they wouldn't have a station to announce not to go to school. So we went to school. And it was cold and snowy, we went to school. Over here, I think if they would have as cold as we had in my city, I don't think you kids would go to school at all in winter time. Because it was 20 below zero, 30 below zero. This is how cold it was. But the summer months were okay. Now, let's see.
Dad, excuse me, what did you say about the people who had radios? The people who had radios, if they might tune into the
People who had
broadcast?
the people who had radios mostly was, first of all, under the Polish regime, you could listen only to Polish radios, Polish stations. But since we lived right on the border, the Russian-Polish border, they were so close, we used to play soccer, and there was a red pole and a red and white pole. And right on the other side was already Russia. And the ball used to fly on the other side, and we used to go and get it. However, in the late 30s, when the Polish government wouldn't let anybody into the city unless they have a special pass, because the war was already on everybody's mind, and everybody knew sooner or later there was going to be a war. So anybody who came to our city had to have a special pass, otherwise they wouldn't let him in, because it was a border town. Now, about anti-Semitism in school was just bad. It was bad. It wasn't like take a cane and beat you up and all that. They used to call you all kinds of names. Dirty Jew. One time, I remember a Ukrainian kid came over, and he had a piece of pork. And he came over and he was putting on my lips. So I grabbed his hand and I grabbed a piece of pork and I ate it. And he was stunned that I eat pork. He never done it again, But it wasn't. Let me put it a different way. You were inclined to believe whatever happened in school. You go to principal and you tell him, well, this kid tried to beat me up. They don't pay any attention. And the Polish schools, when you walk into a Polish class, you could hear a fly flying. And you better not make any noise, because if you do, teacher says to you, get up, go to see the principal. And when you walk in to see the principal said, let me have your palm of your hand, and he takes out a 36-inch ruler and bang, boy, twice. Believe me, you scream. You scream when you get a hit like that. But that was the style, and you couldn't complain to anybody because it's not going to do you any good. But the discipline was like iron. And the lower grades up to the when I finished public school, I went to high school, And already they told you that you have to go every Sunday in military maneuvers to learn how to shoot, how to take apart the rifle, and this and that. And when it came on a holiday, a national holiday, they give you a uniform and with all the things that goes with it, and you have to march in parade. And God help me.
What age were you at that point?
Today,
What age? How old?
age of 17, 16, 17. And God help you if you don't show up. You know, it's not like over here. You want to show, you show. You don't want to show, no. Nobody can do you anything. So anti-Semitism was there. It wasn't big because half the population were Jewish. You only felt it when you went to school. And also, in the late 30s, there were Jews, a lot of Jews in Poland who wanted to immigrate to Israel, Palestine at that time. There was no Israel at the time. But in order for anybody to immigrate to Palestine, the British gave you the Polish government, they gave 1,500 certificates to go to Palestine. Imagine 3.5 million Jews, they only allow 1,500 certificates to go to Palestine. So in order for you to go to Palestine at that time, you have to learn how to chop wood, milk cows, agriculture things. And you work in a kibbutz, and this way the kibbutz contained cows and horses and goats, and people used to hire themselves out to well-to-do Jewish families to clean the houses and all that. And the fellows used to go around. They stayed on the market. And, you're ready to be hired. Yes.
So wait, what you're saying is that a kibbutz is sort of like a
You got to speak a
barn?
little louder.
So what you're saying is that a kibbutz is sort of like a barn?
He's asking if a kibbutz is like a barn.
Oh, no. Well, no, it was a regular house.
Oh.
It was a regular two-decker house. And they had a barn, they had cows and horses. So the Jewish fellows used to go out and carry on their shoulders wooden horses and to be hired out by whoever. So Jewish people used to buy wood, wood to heat the apartments, and then you have to chop it up. And by doing that, you have to hire some people to do that kind of work. Not everybody can do that. But they also, when it came harvest time, and there were well-to-do Ukrainian and Polish people, and the Jewish people used to go to the outskirts of town to hire themselves out to do that kind of work because they need to practice. But they wouldn't hire no Jew at all. They just wouldn't. That's it. They even went out with a cane and they used to call you all kinds of names. Dirty Jew, you better go home. And that's it. So there was, and Poland had people, especially, well, I shouldn't say Jewish, there was a lot of people without work. And to get work was very, very tough. And that's why there were so many people, there were so many poor people, very poor. It's unbelievable to describe how poor these people were. And then they used to go around, the Polish government used to go around and they send like we have over here, the IRS. And if you think the IRS in this country is tough, you should have seen what they did out there in Poland. They take all your furniture and they put you outside. And then the following day, they sell everything out. They don't care whether you have a stick of furniture or not. And then they come back again to auction off your house to do that. I don't think they would do it over here, but they were tough. Believe me, they were tough. And not only were they tough to Jews, they were tough to Gentiles as well. Just like the IRS is over here. You don't pay a tax on time, boy, they'll take everything away from you. And let's see.
Does anybody have questions at this point yet?
Okay. Now, under the Polish, when Poland was fighting a war against the Tsarist Russia in 1917, 18, and 19, there was a Jewish man in Warsaw who asked permission from the Polish government to organize a Jewish brigade. And they gave him permission, they organized a Jewish brigade, and they fought the Russians, and they did a terrific job. And in most Jewish cities and towns, they were always a street name after that person, and his name was Berk Yosilevich. Now, when the Marshal Pilsudski was a marshal in Poland, we had in Poland the president, but the president was a figurehead. He had nothing to say. The most important person was a marshal, a military person, and that was the name Pilsudski. And they tried to have a coup against him several times, and they did not succeed. And they were the right-wingers. So one time the Russian Secret Service were after that guy Pilsudski, who later on became a marshal, and he ran into a Jewish synagogue, and the Jews hated the Tsars just like the Poles hated the Tsars. So one Jew took a tallis and he put it over his head, and he took out a twill and he wrapped it around on his left arm, and the police came in and looking for him, they couldn't find him. Because that Jewish person did that, he awarded, when Poland was established, he awarded a pension for that person for life. And he was very good to the Jews. But that marshal, he died in 1936, 35, and after he died, there would start being problems in Poland, and mostly because, Poles were anti-Semitic by nature, but since Hitler came to power, then the propaganda was bad, Poland terrible. Then the anti-Semitism was much bigger. They sort of like rats coming out of the holes, you know. And when I went to school, and I was already 18 years old. And we used to go, and like I said before, we used to go every Sunday to learn how to shoot and all that, the maneuvers. And my principal was a teacher in Polish history. And he was going through all the history from the beginning. It came up to 1926. In the 1926, the right-wing Polish generals made a coup and they did not succeed. And he sort of like bypassed that principle of that school. And me being a wise guy, and I left my fingers and I said, I'd like to ask a question. And I said, well, how come you don't mention anything about the coup in 1926 when the Polish right-wing generals tried to take over Poland? He gave me a dirty look and he didn't say nothing. But later on, he called me in the office and he blessed the hell out of me for doing that. I said, why? It's history. He said, you cannot, when I participate in a lecture, you cannot correct me. I said, well, it's history, that's why I asked. So every fall every May, after the end of school, they used to send all these kids into a different city for maneuvers. You know, being young, you like things like that, you know. And I take a look at the paper, and I'm looking for my name, and I'm not there. So I walked into the principal, and I said to him, how come I'm not there? He says, we don't need any communists here. He said, where am I communist? I'm not a communist. He says, you wear a Zion over here. I said, well, you wear one too. You were one of the Polish fascists. So he hit me in the face for saying that. That's kind of freedom they had in Poland. So,
Dad, so the reason he didn't want to bring up that part of history about the marshal,
because he was a right-winger.
because he was Jewish?
Because what?
Because he was Jewish?
No, Marshall was not Jewish. He was a Pole.
But he was for the Jewish people. Right?
He was good to the Jewish people.
Yeah, but was that part of the reason why he didn't want to talk about that?
That's what he said to me when I talk. I don't like to be interrupted and corrected. That's what he said. Now we had religion one hour every day. There were Russian Orthodox, there were Ukrainian Orthodox, there were Polish Catholics and Polish Protestants. So each group had an hour of religion every day. And so did we, Jews. We had a rabbi. And they taught us about the Torah and everything. Also, going back to the life in my hometown, which in this country we take everything for granted, like outdoor plumbing. Now, we didn't have that. We had a outdoor plumbing taken from boards, put it together, and that's what you did. You went 20 below zero, 30 below zero. Didn't matter. There was no bathrooms in the house. The first bathroom in the house I saw when I was in Austria, in 1945. At the same time, when my daughter Laurie and I were in my hometown in 1994, I showed her a building under the Russians. When the Russians came in, Poland was a country that you could get anything you want in the world. Business is free, open, you know. But when the Russians came in, they nationalized everything. In 1939, when the Russians came in, they nationalized everything. And if you want to buy anything, you had to stay in line. So I showed Laurie When I was standing in line in the morning, I got up in the morning, they gave sugar, 2 kilograms of sugar per person. And I got up 4 o'clock in the morning and I was standing there in line until 8 o'clock till they opened the store. And I showed at the lorry that the line that we were standing, we were against the wall. And after that day, you could see a whole line from the beginning of the building to the end of the building, from rubbing against the brick, you know? And people used to buy sugar until they didn't have any more money. And a lot of people bought sugar for one person only. They knew sooner or later there's going to be a shortage, and which it was correct. There was a shortage. You couldn't get any more sugar. For months you couldn't get it. Then you had to buy in the black market. You got to pay 10 times as much. You know, don't pay a government price. So this is the communistic freedom. There were, every Thursday, my mother used to send me or my elder brother go shopping. Well, shopping consisted of small little stores with everything in sacks, with flour, anything that you want to shop. And there was not like over here, you go in a shopping center, you go in and everything is packed for you, and it's written, the weight and everything. Over there you had to stay in line. This was on the Poland, I want you to know, because there was a lot of people who go by for the whole week, flour and everything. And they used to take newspapers instead of regular white paper and wrap it around and weigh it. And you could stay maybe 2 hours until you get everything and you bring it home. And mother used to take, there was like a big barrel, put flour in there with water and mix them up and bake and make challah and make all kinds of stuff from Thursday midnight till about maybe 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that was not an easy job comparative to this country, you know. All the stuff that you work, the washing machine wasn't such an animal. By hand, you have to do everything. Yeah. And, but when the war broke out, when the war broke out, 1941.
Before that, did you want to talk about some of the customs that the Jews did?
Say it again?
Did you want to talk about some of the customs that the Jews had? Like the kosher, making the chicken kosher?
Oh, yeah.
That kind of thing?
Yeah, well, people were Orthodox. I would say 99% of the Jewish population were Orthodox, strictly Orthodox, kosher. And I remember one episode that my mother gave me a chicken to take it to a shop where they kill chickens, and he had to be our ordained rabbi in order to do that. Is that all right, Rabbi?
You have to get trained for it anyway.
Anyway, so I took that chicken into that place, and he grabbed the chicken for the wings, and he said, uh-oh. He says, you got to take it to a rabbi to ask a question whether the chicken is kosher or it's not kosher. So I took the chicken and I went to a rabbi, and I walked in there, and the first thing he said to me, who are you? Who are your parents? And I said, I told him who my parents were, and he says, it's treif. Treif means it's not kosher. So when I came home and I said to my mother, I said, well, how come you didn't even examine the chicken, whether it's kosher or it's broken? He asked me who you are, and I told him, and he says it's fake. She said to me, well, if you could afford to buy another chicken, it's straight. And if you couldn't, he would have said it's kosher. But that's what the Torah said too. There's things that you know, it fluctuates. It's never 100% one side, never 100% the other side. But it was kind of funny being a youngster. I couldn't understand that. Let's see.
Dad, what about when you took the chicken back to that person to say the prayer?
Oh yeah.
Tell about that.
Well, when it came, what is it, Simple Story, I believe. And what happened is if you can afford to buy a chicken, right? So you buy a chicken and you take the chicken and you turn it around on your head and you say, Zechel Afusi, Zatem Afusi, Zeatam Elech. And that means that you are sacrificing the chicken for yourself. In other words, you make that bracha and that chicken goes to be killed and then eaten. And if there were people who did not have any, who couldn't afford to buy chicken, so they took a quarter or a nickel or something like that, and they went around his head the same way. But that's all how we used to do that, because it was like fiddle on the roof, tradition. Now, I want to go back to the World War II broke out. We lived right, like I said, on the former Russian-Polish border. And they wouldn't let anybody in from the other side, from the Russian side to the Polish side, even though there was Russian on the other side as well. So when the war broke out, I remember the 22nd of June, and we heard on radio that it wouldn't be much longer until the Germans will occupy the city. But no one dared to escape, because if you do, you will create panic. And by doing that, they could shot you on the spot. So everybody understood that. But everybody who intended to leave the city were ready and waiting until the big shots from the city will drive away into the Russian side. So when that happened, I too hopped on my bicycle, and I got, my mother gave me stuff for the winter, just in case, you know, will be cold and all that. And I took off. And then out about 5-6 kilometers from the city, there was such a bombardment. The skies were red. When I say red, I mean red, because they put up a defense, the Russians, on the old Polish-Russian border. And that lasted for about 5 days. The city went in from hand to hand. And finally, the Germans finally came in there. And from then on, most naturally, the Ukrainians helped the Germans. As a matter of fact, the Ukrainians were worse than the Germans. because the Germans never knew who was a Jew, who isn't. And they went around and pointed out who is and who isn't. They created ghettos, and the first action, they called it, they got together all the people. And they make them what we had an old city and a new city. The old city was very, very large, but the new city was maybe one third or 1/4 as big. And they already had the Ukrainians, they dug up big graves, and they were ready for the Jews. And then the Jewish people, the first one, they took the older people, and they brought them in there. They tell them to undress. And the Germans, Gestapo, SS, they killed them, and they dumped them into the grave. Many of them were not dead yet. And the ground was lifting because they weren't dead. And then that was the first action. Then they took youngsters in their teens, and they took them in a different place. Also prepared by the Ukrainians, dug up graves and all that, and they shot them. They took babies. Doesn't matter, babies, 5 months, newly born, and they took them outside, and they killed them. Or they take one truck, stand on one side, the other one tuck on the other side, and they tie up the baby, they tie up one foot and the other one, they tear them apart. And they have killed 12,000 Jewish people. Laurie and I were there. The man who took us there to show us where the graves are, and he was telling us the same story I just told you. And they put up a monument, it wasn't too big. However, there were 400 people alive from my hometown that escaped that time when the war broke out, like I escaped to Russia. And then they returned, everyone returned, because the Russian government allowed all former Polish citizens to return to Poland. And they weren't so gracious as people might think, that they let their citizens go back, because Poland was a communistic as well. However, Poland...
I think she has a good question. Do you have a question, Evelyn?
Yes,
Why did they kill the people?
give me yes?
Why did they kill the people?
Why did they kill the people? It's a good question why they killed them. Nobody knows why they killed them. And there's a lot of, it goes back generations with anti-Semitism all over the world, especially Russia, Germany, Poland, that they hated Jews because we were of different religion. We did not want to convert to Catholicism or any other religion. But even in this country we have anti-Semitism, and you let them, it will be, if God forbid ever comes a Hitler over here, it'll be worse than in Germany, because you have here Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, Ukrainians, Poles, Hungarians, and from Yugoslavia, all the killers that participate in the killing of the Jews you have here in this country. Because what they did before they left Austria, they were in camps like I was. In a camp after the war, there were Jews different, Poles different, you know, and they told them that they were in a concentration camp. They were killers, but they told them in a concentration camp. Now they dig up, now and then, you must have read in the paper, I mean the adults know, that several of them, they can't sue them or put them in prison because they did not commit any crime in this country, so they send them to their countries where they came from. And there were several things like that they sent them back to Lithuania. because the Lithuanians were with the Germans, just like the Ukrainians. So, I remember that.
I want to ask the students, have you all noticed in the news and stuff, is that a surprise to you that there are concentration camp guards who are here free in this country and who have now been sent back to be tried? Is that information that's new to you, or is that something you knew?
I thought that they deserved to be tried, but I thought that after a period of time, they can't really try them because people die, people forget.
There is no statute of limitations on war crimes.
Like I forgot, a year ago or 2 years ago, that this 93-year-old was
Right.
a Nazi war criminal and he was being sent back to Germany to be tried.
Not Germany, Lithuania. But okay, I just wanted to make sure folks knew that and that that's happening. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. One other thing I want to mention, which I forgot, thinking about cold winters. We had, in our store, we had a cellar. That cellar must have been as deep as the whole room. That's how deep it was. And the hospital, there were 2 hospitals in our hometown. They hired the cellar to keep the ice in the air. And to imagine how cold it was, so in the winter months, they hired people to chop the ice. And the ice was more than a foot thick on the river. You can imagine how cold it was. So they dug up the ice and they brought it into our, we had in the city, we had a lot of cellars because that city consists of, the name of Ostrog, of my city, means it's a place where they had, what do you call that? In order, there used to be wars between Ukrainians and Poles, between Poles and Germans and Tatars from the Far East, the Mongols, and the city was surrounded with can't think of the word. How do you say it in English? Fort. What a fort. All the cities surrounded. And you could tell how they were built. They left open areas where they can shoot, and all that. And when I remember going to school as a youngster, they took us to see the underground fortresses in that city. You could walk in one side of the city and walk out the other side underground, the whole length of the city. Because in those days, there were so many wars, and there was people were hiding. They slaughtered people. In my city, there were so many pogroms. The Cossacks that used to go through the city, they used to slaughter hundreds of them. And I always say one thing: if the Jewish people they wouldn't bother them all through the ages, we wouldn't have 17 million like we had before World War II. He probably would have 250 million. They killed that many. Look what the Germans killed over 1.5 million Jewish kids. Those 1.5 million could bring in another 3-4 million. And this is why the Jewish population is cut down to about 11 million. Now, I think this is about, the only other thing I want to say is, when I was in the Soviet Union during World War II, it was in 1944, I got a letter from my sister, which I thought the whole family was killed. And that letter, when I started reading it, I couldn't read it. I had to hand it over to a Russian. They should continue to read that letter. And in that letter, she spilled out the whole thing, what happened to my parents, how they escaped. They escaped. My older sister was a teacher, and she was hiding in the villages, from village to village. And these people who used to come to our house, and stay overnight, and my mother fed him, and all that. And when my sisters escaped from the ghetto, and they went into that village where these people used to sleep in our house and eat everything, they wouldn't let them in. And they threatened them, if they're not going to go away, they'll let the dogs free on them. See what I mean? So they, both of my sisters were working as, at one time as Ukrainian, the other time as Poles, because both of my sisters were not, they don't look like Jews because they were blonde. I mean, blonde to a person like white. So this is how they escaped death. And when I heard about that, I immediately left from the Caucasus, that's southern Caucasia, 1944. I left to see them. And they took me off the train several times because a person at my age should be in the military. And I had good documentations, and the only thing I was asked when they brought me to this red board, why I'm not in the service. I said, well, I'm sure that you know that, but you take a look at a map, the eastern part of Poland, and all those who were born eastern part of Poland, when the war broke out, they took them off the front. Why? Because mostly were Poles and Ukrainians, and they gave themselves up to the Germans. So they gave out an order to take them off the front. And that was that no matter who, Jew or non-Jew. So I told them, I said, here it is, my documentations are fine, and you look at the map, and I'm a Polish citizen, that's why they didn't take it. So they let me go. But every station, the police used to come, and I showed them my document, they wouldn't say anything, just come with me, and that's it. So by the time I reached that place where I went to see my sisters, they must have taken me over 5, 6 times. They always let me go because I had good documents. And then from there we went to Poland because, like I said before, the Russian government allowed all the former Polish citizens to go to Poland because they weren't that honest and that good to go and let us go. Poland was also communistic. However, Poland was a little different. But we smuggled from Poland to Czechoslovakia to Austria. We went from Poland to Czechoslovakia as Greek Jews, and there were organizations, Zionist organizations, who taught us as much Greek as possible. Like a few things that should talk amongst themselves. And right on the Polish-Czechoslovakian border, police took us off from the train and into their station, and as we walk into the station, you must have been about 10, 12 people, and one officer says in Polish, he says, these are The goddamn Polish Jews, but we didn't talk any Jewish, we talked Hebrew amongst themselves. And then whoever couldn't express himself in Hebrew, we threw in a few Yiddish words, you know? And then we went to Czechoslovakia, from Czechoslovakia to Austria. In Austria, we were there for about 3.5 years, and we applied to come to the United States, and that's it. And this is the end of my story. Any questions?
Do you speak?
Yes.
Do you speak Polish?
Yes,
Because I always thought it was really strange
I
that
can hear you better.
I always thought it was so strange that none of my grandparents or my great-grandparents spoke Polish. My grandfather did, but the rest,
Really?
and I always thought it was the strangest thing. They spoke
yeah,
Yiddish, but,
I speak Polish just like a Pole. I also speak Russian.
okay, yeah, my grandfather spoke Russian also
Yeah.
too, but.
Yeah.
Did many of the Jewish people speak Polish, or was that?
Oh, sure. Anybody who was born Polish, just like in the United States, anybody who was born in the United States knows how to speak English.
So, what I would like you all to do now is to think about, and come up with some questions in a couple of areas. One is, if you have any questions about what it was like being schooled there. Some of the, if you have questions about the experience of living in a place where the discipline was the way you heard it described. If you have questions about how holidays are different, and things that were different about living conditions, about home. If you have questions about, we assume that we move very freely and that there's really no borders between Jew and non-Jew. If you have questions about what that's about. So if you all come up with, I'd like to hear some of your questions about, because it's a very different world than the one you're accustomed to.
How'd you get through Austria when that was occupied by the Germans?
Tell me?
When you went through Austria, was that occupied by the Germans? If you were going as Greek Jews, wouldn't you have been picked up?
When you went through Austria, was that under German control at that point, or was that after the war?
No, that was after the war. That was
What else did they do to the people that misbehaved in schools?
I can't do it.
What he asked about misbehaving in school.
Oh, yeah.
He needs a warning.
You want to, well, misbehaving, it was very rarely that you misbehaved because you knew the results. Enter the principle, let's have the palm of your hand. You think twice before you would misbehave.
So can you all imagine what it feels like? And it actually doesn't sound as bad as it is. To say, okay, you take a ruler and you open up the palm of your, why on the open palm of your hand? Why not on the back of your hand or on your shoulder? Why do you think they hit on the palm of your hand?
Your skin's really thin.
Yeah. That's because it's a place where you're more sensitive. I mean, if you just touch yourself gently here versus here, you'll feel the difference. You've just got more feel there.
You can damage, if you hit on above, you can break a bone. Over here, it's not going to break anything. It's flesh. You'll be sore for a week, maybe.
Did the rabbis do discipline like that too?
What's that?
Did the rabbis discipline you like that too?
They had a whip. You say something, you're not supposed to talk. He'll hit you with a whip, or you leave it. He'll tell you you're going to stay 2 hours at the school, and you stay there. So what I did, I don't want to mention what I did after that. Yeah.
What age did you start Seder? What age did you start Seder?
Hey, they started 5.
Started at 5.
All right.
favorite.
When you went to public school, you left at 2 o'clock, and then you went to religious school until what time?
From 2 to, let's see, from 2 to 6 o'clock,
Is that
4
every
hours.
day? Every day?
Every single day.
And how often did you go to shul?
Every day, 3 times a day, with my father, which I went to 3 times a day. Yeah, that's right. And, but I'll say one thing about even the education, the Jewish education. I'm sure the rabbi knows what Russia is. You know, Russia, not Russia, but
Right.
Russia, you know, the Bible.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, the Bible it's also written in Hebrew, but it's written in Goddess script. That's a German word, like when you read German, it's written like God wrote. There are newspapers, they print just like English, and there's Goddess script. Goddess script is like the Bible, the Gentile Bible is written. It's a different letters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be,
They call it the Goddess script in
yeah,
German.
yeah, if it was like in Gothic print.
Gothic print, exactly. Now, Russia is the same thing. If you may be able to read Hebrew, but you won't be able to read Russian, because Russian is just like Goddess script. Am I right, Doc?
Yeah. So you've got a whole different, when you come to that, you've got a whole different kind of typeface and a whole different kind of language to learn again. So yet another language.
So we went to school, Polish schools, and to Yiddish, learn, read, and write, then to the Bible, the Yiddish Bible, the Jewish Bible, and but I'll tell you, like I said before, education is something you'll never forget, ever. You read and write till this day. So, kids, remember that. Education is very important. Yes?
Did you ever have homework?
Did I have homework? And how? And how? Poems you had to remember. You better remember. If you don't remember, you get a bad mark. A lot of poems. Poland and Russia is well known about their poems. Yes?
What would happen if you didn't remember a certain poem?
Not going to happen. You get a bad mark.
What, like?
You get probably a 3. Well, a 2 was the worst. A 3 was passable. A 4 was good. Now 5 was very good. So you probably get a 2, and it's a bad mark. If you have 3 or 4 of them, you can't graduate from one grade to another. The same thing goes with behavior. If you have a bad mark in behavior, they won't let you jump to another grade. Yes?
What time did you leave for public school in the morning?
Public school in the morning, we would start about 8 o'clock.
Right.
Okay, so just to remind folks though, to think about it, and we've now started to get a little bit cold here. We were talking about 20 degrees below zero, that you don't have transportation to school, you get yourself there. Right? So think about what that feels like. Do that. Yes, ma'am. You had a question?
Me?
I
No,
don't think you did.
no.
You kept raising your hand.
I was raising my hand.
Because what I would like to say in reference to what you just said is because They were brought up like that. Everything is easy. Everything is easy. Vacations, they have so many vacations over here, holy mackerel. You could get a vacation, you know when? A national holiday. Polish national holiday, you get a day off.
Did he go to school 12 months a year, or did you have summer off?
No, summer off. Take all the summer off.
Okay. Was that spent, were you expected to work through that time?
Except what?
Were you expected to work?
Well, work was something, like I said before, it's very seldom anybody could get a job. And they could, if they find one. But Poland was very, very tough to get a job. Very tough. It was a poor country, very poor.
Yeah.
But the Jewish people were very well organized, very. No one was ever hungry. They always helped out. They couldn't have what everybody else had. They didn't. They had warm clothing, donated by the well-to-do people. They used to go around from door to door, taking money from people well-to-do, and that money was applied to the poor people.
How many synagogues were in your town?
Excuse me?
How many synagogues were in your town?
There was a synagogue. One, let's see, one, two, three, four, 5, 6, 7, 8 that I remember. Not, that's excluding, we had an old city and a new city. Now, the old city was much larger. They had several of them in the new city as well. But we had one large synagogue.
Yeah.
There was another synagogue like that I saw in Israel. Exactly a copy of that. But what they did under the Russians, they held cows in there. Well, it wasn't only the Jews and the churches, they had the same thing. There's no religion. But the big synagogue in our hometown was located deep into the Jewish section. Huge, it was a huge synagogue. That synagogue could take in, without exaggeration, 300 people. That's how huge it was. And there is a story, well, not only a story, I mean, and for fact I saw that too, when the Russians were fighting the Ukrainians, the Poles. They were exchanging artillery shots. And in those days, the artillery consisted of big balls. And there were several like these bombs, these balls hanging in the synagogue until 1940, the war started. Imagine that. And then after the Russians, the Germans occupied the city, and the Jews were liquidated, so the Ukrainians, they took everything apart. They tore out the wood, the roof, and everything. Laurie and I were in my hometown. I went to look for that synagogue, and a Russian couple walked by, and I asked, where is the Jewish synagogue? And he points out right here. I said, that's not the synagogue. I couldn't recognize. It was practically nothing there anymore. Imagine that. They took everything apart. So it's like anybody who was in Israel, when you're walking into the place where they show all the concentration camps and all that. And there's a big sign before you walk in there, and it's written in English, in Arabic, And Hebrew, there was a will and no more.
Right.
You see that? You
Yep.
see that? Very tragic when you see that. There was a will and no more. And like I said, Laurie and I, but my hometown, there was a town with 12,000, 15,000 Jews. And nobody, 5 people out of 14 or 15,000, there were 5 Jews left in my hometown. And there was one, remember he came up in our house, you remember my parents, remember that, Laurie was there? But there were 400 Jewish people, and all the war broke out, we all left for Russia. And when they returned, all went to Israel. They have their own organization.
Yeah.
They have, they meet twice a year. And then you meet them, the last time I saw these people, I saw them before the war started. And the first time I saw them was in 1984. My age, I recognized every one of them. People who were older than I couldn't recognize. You know, but
Yeah.
my age I could. It was very, very entertaining meeting those people. Really was. Friends, you know.
What would happen if you stole something from like a shop?
Say it again.
What would happen if you stole something like from a business?
What do you say again?
If you stole something, what would happen?
They stole something, they'll punish you just like they punish you over here. You stole something over here, they'll put you in jail. You stole out there, they'll put you in jail. But speaking of putting in jail, living in the Soviet Union, I was during World War II. There was a saying: those who were not in jail are not Soviet citizens, because most of the people were in jail one time or another, and the reason why is because they have such a proletariat paradise. It's just a phrase, it's just a word, it means anything. Nothing, absolutely nothing. So the wages are so low that everybody is forced to steal. If you don't steal, you can't exist. If you're lucky, they won't catch you. If they catch you, they put you in jail. You come during the war time. I know 3 friends of mine. There were a group that we left my hometown, and we were in the Caucasus. And we worked in a place there so that we couldn't be all in one room. So there were 3 in one room and about 4 in another room. And those 3 who were in the other room came to work 10 minutes late. They took him to court and they put him in jail for 6 months. But 10 minutes.
10 minutes late.
Huh? 10 minutes late. So, well, I got scared like everybody else. I went into your market and I bought myself a rooster. And that's no joke. Believe me when I tell you, I bought a rooster, I made a little cage, and I put the rooster in there. When the rooster starts singing in the morning, usually they start at 4 o'clock in the morning, and from then on I went to sleep again. I know at a 3rd time I better get up. And this is how, because my watch broke and I just couldn't fix it at that time. So that's the Russian paradise, so to speak. You know?
But when you were a teenager, were there Jewish youth groups?
Oh yeah, I belonged to a sport club. I also belonged to a Zionist organization, youth organization. We used all kinds of sports, boxing, ping pong, all kinds of sports. Yeah, and it was well organized. The Zionist organization, well organized. And most everybody who went there, their aim was to go to Palestine, but since England only allowed 1,500 a month, of a population of Poland that 3.5 million Jews, you know. And, wow, such a big population, so very few chances you have for you to go there.
If you want to think about those numbers, figure out how many months would it take for 3.5 million people to go across, leaving it at 1,500 a month.
Yeah, that's true.
And that'll give you some idea of how slow and how small that was. If you just sort of do that math, that'll give you a little bit of a sense of that.
Like they say the Chinese, if they ever cross from China, let's say to Germany, they'll never cross.
Right.
They'll never cross.
So,
What is it, 1 billion, 100 million people there?
something like that. Do you all have any other questions about what life was like before the war?
Well, I'll tell you. If you don't know any better, right? I'll give you another example. Laurie and I went to Russia. We took with us gifts for the people that we already knew there. And among those paperwork, like toilet paper, Kleenex, and anything like that. And they don't have it. They don't have anything like this. They just don't. I remember coming back in Kiev, on the airport in Kiev. I want to go to the bathroom, and I see a lady, like a table like this, just sitting there, and she had something on her table. I didn't know what. So Laura and I went and we sat down, waiting for the plane, and all of a sudden I said, Laura, you'll be right back, you have to go to the bathroom. So I walk in the bathroom, I see 6 stalls there, and none of them had toilet paper. So I walk outside, and I'm looking around, I see that woman sitting there, and then all of a sudden I see she had paper. So I said, I just look at it, no paper. So I grabbed the roll. She said, oh no. She tore up a piece and she gave it to me. You see what I mean? Over here, there's no such thing. And Laura and I came to Swiss one. Remember that? The Swiss is just like over here. Oh, I'm telling you, it was a heaven. Really heaven.
Yeah. And things we take for granted. We take for granted that when you're ready to go to the bathroom, you go to a little room inside that's warm. It's going to have toilet paper. It's going to have running water. It's not going to stink. And that's not true. That wasn't true not so long ago.
They still don't have a lot of the luxuries. The hotel we stayed in, and they thought they were ripping us off, charging us $7 a night. They said, we'll have hot water every night at 6 o'clock, 6 to 7 o'clock.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, out of the 9 or 10 days that we were there were 2 nights that we actually had hot water. And sometimes we had no water at all. And I had brought one of those little, it's a coil, a metal coil, and you plug it into the wall and you put the coil into your teacup. This is just to heat up tea. Well, in the morning, I'd fill up a basin with water, if there was water, and I'd put the coil in there so that by the end of the day, my father could have some warm water to wash up with. And I sacrificed that water. And I would get into the tub, and they had this little black tube or hose like this wide, and I'd start from my toes, ice cold water, start from my toes and work my way up and take a bath like that, if we had the water at all. And that was 5 years ago.
In Poland.
Well, that's in the Ukraine now. 5 years ago.
Then
At a fancy hotel.
I went downstairs, and I said to that lady there, I says, there's no hot water in here. So she says, tell you what, I'll give you some of our, the samovar. samovar, you make tea, hot water, I don't know, how do you say a samovar?
Samovar.
A
I know,
percolator
to explain in
or
English.
an urn, yeah, an
Yeah.
urn.
Yeah,
A percolator or,
something like to warm up,
Electric.
Russia, people drink a lot of tea,
Electric?
so they put water in
I
there.
think it was electric. Was it electric?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but that didn't work either.
I know it did, and it was all corroded.
The faucets were leaking,
Okay. Okay, so at least my goal for this, outside of simply having the opportunity to really meet Lori's dad, Michael's granddad, and, but it is really to understand that, you know, it just wasn't very long ago, when we lived in Europe, that we lived a very different life. Jews in America are generally pretty well off. There are poor Jews, but there are not many of them, actually. Jews in America have done very well. We tend to be middle class or upper middle class or rich. And we tend to have, as everybody, even the poor people in America, have more luxuries than most people did in the 20s and in the teens.
yeah.
And so to have some experience and some thought about a very different experience of what it was to be, to live. And in Poland and in much of Europe, most Jews were very poor. The idea that we think of Jews as being reasonably wealthy is something that happened in America. It didn't happen in Europe. So to be able to have some picture and experience of that. I would like, we do not, a reminder that we do not have class next week. Next week is the Thanksgiving service. But when we come back in 2 weeks, I have a request for homework, which is that you write up something out of what you heard today that sort of stuck in your head to be able to give to Sandra.
Yeah, the family trees are due that. I'm gonna call everybody to remind you to get working on them, but I don't know how much, has anyone made any progress? Oh, good, okay, so good. All right, well, I'll call everyone anyways, just to, they're due the next time we meet, which is, I believe, December 1st.
Yes. Yes. So for 2 weeks from now, to have a family tree and to write up something about something that you learned tonight that stayed with you. One of the things that when we come back, you're going to spend time sort of finishing up that part of the unit, sharing your family trees. I'm also going to bring with me some books that I have that also have some pictures of what it was for Jews to be, of Jews in Europe in those years. Because it's very, very different. We don't think of looking down the streets of the Jewish section of town and seeing them all dirt and muddy. Because there were not paved roads. So just to really have this very different experience.
I had one thing.
Yes.
I was gonna ask if you can, to try and find out, like when your parents came to this or grandparents, whatever, like when they came to this country and where they were from and what ages, like I was gonna actually make a list, but I didn't have a chance, but what ages they came to this country, like were they your age when they came here? Who did they come with, if you can get that information? And the other thing I'm just curious for people is just take account yourself of how easy or hard it is to get that information, because I find it very difficult in my own family, and just see if people actually want to talk about, if you have any relatives still alive, if they want to talk about Poland, what their feelings are about it, because I'll be curious to find out if that's difficult for everybody as well. So.
Good. Okay, so reminder, next week is the Thanksgiving service. We're back here in 2 weeks. You've got your homework. A reminder that on December 4th is the junior congregation. The bar mitzvah class has an assignment for that. The bar mitzvah class has a homework sheet over on the table over there. So for homework for bar mitzvah families. The Hanukkah party is on the 5th, and the youth group is helping with that. Am I correct?
Services this Saturday.
We have services this Saturday.
And a thank you to Lori's dad.
Yes, and say thank you very much.
Well, welcome, sure, I'm happy to.
Very, very much appreciated. It really is interesting to hear descriptions that I've read, but have not really heard directly from folks. I appreciate it very much. And thank you. We're done.